know that it's a secret and that I gotta keep it, but I want the lights on, yeah, I want the lights on, and I don't wanna run.
Kia ora guys, Gavin Gaming here, and today we're going to be covering a really lengthy Assassination Rogue Duel Spec guide for you. Before I kick into it, I'm going to tell you the things that we're going to go into, and it's going to be really quite in-depth. We'll be going over a very small introduction. We'll also be covering all of the classes and all of their abilities that could impair or affect your burst rotation and or your damage output towards that specific class or their allies, as well as a full talent section of PvP talents, normal talents and artifact talents, which ones to go for, and I'll also be discussing why I chose the specific talents that we'll be going for, as well as which way to move with your artifact weapon whenever you get points to put into your weapon. We'll also, near the end, be going over some handy items to really help out with either world PvP or just really helping in battlegrounds. Most items, however, will not be able to work in arenas, so just bear that in mind. After our items, we'll go through what I believe to be the best stats possible. I haven't tested this out yet, this is going to be me theory crafting for a little bit, and then we'll finish off with our enchants that you can get, and just a small conclusion of everything that I've gone over. Okay, so first up we have an intro, and so I guess I should start off with the first thing. I haven't actually seen any really big rogue guides out there. I only watch one person at the moment, and that's Dalaran Gaming, and he hasn't really brought out like a really big rogue guide for dueling or anything like that, and especially to do with assassination, as Outlaw is his main spec. So I'll be going over the Assassination Rogue Duel Spec guide. And for the Assassination spec, we're battling a huge uphill battle when it comes to just standing toe to toe with the other two specs, and that being Outlaw and Subtlety. Because not only do we have far less CC than both the other two specs, we also have a lot less mobility. And so fortunately we've been gifted with really viable burst, which can be easily countered, but it is fun to set up and really fun to use if you use it right. So this guide here will be made specifically for showing you how to set up that burst, telling you when not to use that burst more or less, and just giving you those little warnings, as well as helping you out with your talent build and your general rotation, etc. Alright, so next up we have our classes, and this will entail the cooldowns and the spells that can affect your burst or your damage towards either that class or his or hers allies. First up we have the Death Knight, and for the Death Knight we have Anti-Magic Shell, Icebound Fortitude, and Corpse Shield. I won't be going over the tanks, by the way. I'm not going over tanks at all because they should not be PvPing. So Anti-Magic Shell, the specs that can use this is Frost and Unholy. And this isn't necessarily a really big one for Assassination because a lot of our damage still comes from bleeds rather than from our poisons. But it will absorb all of your envenom damage, as your envenom is nature damage, and it's not physical, so it will get absorbed by the Anti-Magic Shell. So when bursting, or if you think you can kill, just bear in mind that an Anti-Magic Shell could stop you from getting that killing blow. Next up is the Icebound Fortitude. This here can be used by both Frost and Unholy, and it will reduce a lot of your damage upon bursting. So if you can wait it out, and if you've already started it and they've popped it, you might as well finish your burst and vanish so that they can't heal off you. Death Knights at the moment have got a big problem with being able to heal. They need to have somebody in front of them that are enemy to be able to heal. So as long as you can get away, once you've finished popping your burst, they can end up dying while you're in invis. Also, with Icebound Fortitude, a point to note is he cannot be stunned for the whole 8-second duration, which means that your cheap shot and your kidney shot will not work. This will also mean that your kidney shot bleed effect, if you're talented for it, will not go through because he hasn't been stunned, and the bleed will only apply if he has been stunned by kidney shot. With Corpse Shield, 90% of all damage goes to the DK's pet instead of the DK himself. He is still dotted up, however all that damage is transferred from him to his pet. Most DKs, if they're using Corpse Shield, will have a Corpse Shield / huddle macro, meaning that their pet takes a lot less damage, but is taking all of that damage that you're bursting him with. So you could have missed out on a good 300 to 500,000 damage and find that all you've done is just killed his pet, while he can still deal a ton of damage and then resummon his pet straight away and take you out. If you can, hold off on the burst if he's already popped Corpse Shield. Otherwise, if you've finished bursting and he's popped Corpse Shield, try and get away and wait until his Corpse Shield is finished and then come in for the finishing kill. Next up we have the Demon Hunter. The abilities that we have for Demon Hunter are Blur and Darkness, with the spec being Havoc, which is the DPS spec. Blur, most importantly, the dodge chance. It's a 50% dodge chance, and it reduces all damage by 35%. So all of your dots that are on him already will be reduced by 35% for 10 whole seconds. It's on a 1 minute cooldown as well. So it's a very short cooldown, but it's big in terms of how much it does for the Demon Hunter. It also increases dodge chance by 50%. So that means that you could end up throwing away 5 to 6 combo point ruptures or kidneys or envenoms due to the fact that he could dodge those abilities. So if you can, wait it out or just run away. Kite from afar and just throw poison knife at him until his blur has finished. Next up is the Darkness. With Darkness, it's a small 15% chance, but once again, they could avoid a full 6 to 5 combo point attack, that being your Rupture, your Kidney, or your Envenom. As Assassination Rogue, we really rely on having energy, and we struggle to get our energy. So if you can, either run from him and let him chase you out of the Darkness cloud, just use Poison Eyes until he comes back out. Otherwise, if he's going to stay in there, try and get a restealth. Next up is the Druid. We've got Ironbark, Barkskin, and Survival Instincts. Ironbark is for only the Restoration spec, and this reduces all damage by 20%, and it's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. But also remember that Resto Druids have Barkskin as well, which is on a 1 minute cooldown. And so that makes it hard when versing a Resto Druid, as they have Ironbark and Barkskin. When bursting or when dealing damage, you will eventually have to burst through one or more of these cooldowns. Barkskin is for the specs both Restoration Druid and Balance Druid. Next up we have Survival Instincts. This is for the spec Feral Druid. Survival Instincts is a spell that reduces all damage by 50%, and it has 2 charges. It is on a 3 minute cooldown, so it's a massive cooldown if you can force them quite early. It will make the game shorter later on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Survival Instincts cannot be used while stunned, so if you can, burst the Feral Druid in a stun so that they can't use Survival Instincts. Next up we have Aspect of the Turtle, and this is for all 3 Hunter specs. This will allow any damage that is already on the Hunter to take place. However, any damage that you do while the aspect is already on will not take place. So any ruptures, hemos, garrotes, or poisons that are on him as he activates the aspect will stay on him and deal damage underneath. However, if you try to deal damage to the Hunter while Aspect of the Turtle is on, that damage will not take place. My advice is try and catch Restart if you can. However, if you can't due to a pet or due to dots, just try and stay as close to him as possible and build combo points off his pet if he has one. Get ready for that disengage, because just after he comes out, he's more than likely going to disengage, and you need to Shadow Step Kidney him straight away to put that pressure back on. Next up we've got the Ice Block. This is for all 3 specs once again. This will take off all debuffs and make them immune to all damage. So that means your poisons, your bleeds, everything goes. Everything disappears when the mage blocks. Do not burst into it. Don't be silly. If you can catch a restart, do so. But if you can't, don't stray too far from the Ice Block, as most mages have a Cancel Aura macro to remove themselves from Ice Block early so they can keep you in combat. That means if you tried to get away and you didn't manage to LOS in time, they could Cancel Aura Ice Block and then end up hitting you and keeping you in combat with double blink. Next up we've got Temporal Shield. This here is an honor talent and it's nasty. It lasts for 4 seconds and it will remember what their health is at the time that they use it. If they are at full health and they activate it, 4 seconds later they will be back at full health if they haven't died within that time. So, if they are using this, and you know you can't kill them before their temporal shield is over, do not bother sinking any big combo point damage into the mage unnecessarily. It's fine to keep up your Garrow and your Hemo and your Rupture, but don't sink any kidneys into them, and don't sink any envenoms into them. It's just not worth the energy. Next up, we've got the Touch of Karma. This is for just the Windwalker monk only. And what I found with the general population of monks, they will normally pop Touch of Karma after they come out of your stun. So when versing a monk 1v1, unless you plan on vanishing before they are able to target you, I advise that you do not use anything more than a Garrote, Rupture and Hemo as DPS abilities for a short amount of time. If the monk does not, however, use Touch of Karma after being stunned and insists on bursting you down instead, then feel free to pop Evasion, renew all your dots, put him in a full kidney, and then throw down your Ixang burst. However, bear in mind that if he does see this, he will try and pop Karma then, so after popping your burst, try to LOS or vanish immediately. Another point to note is that Touch of Karma can be immune to by Cloak of Shadows for its 4-second duration. However, after that, Touch of Karma will continue to start hurting you. So, if you are bursting, you can reduce some of the damage taken from Touch of Karma with Cloak of Shadows if you really need to. Next up, we've got Shield of Vengeance. This spell will only detonate if all damage that the spell absorbs is fulfilled. Therefore, it is only reasonable to hold off burst if you can do so. Try not to cloak this damage unless the paladin is already at low health. This is due to the fact that Shield of Vengeance and Holy Wrath will equal your death. Next up, we've got Blessing of Protection. This will remove all dots from the paladin and make them immune to all damage while still allowing the paladin to deal damage to you. If the paladin bops early, or Blessing of Protection early, then you're in luck. However, if the paladin is smart, he'll wait until he sees Vendetta and then bop. In this case, wait a couple of seconds after using Vendetta. If he still hasn't bopped, then renew your dots and pop your Exsanguinate on him. You'll have enough time for Exsanguinate to deal its damage still within the Vendetta time. Next up is Divine Shield. This is for both Retribution and Holy Spec. This spell is unavoidable for most rogues due to the fact that Ret paladins have a certain talent that acts like a rogue's cheat death. Upon taking fatal damage, the paladin will gain Divine Shield so long as they are not affected by Forbearance already. Also, Holy Paladins will often use this as late as they can, so you shouldn't have too much problems with your burst at the start. However, when it comes to finishing off the Holy Paladin, this spell will make it tricky for you to finish them off. 8 seconds of immunity while they get to heal up, and you get to watch out in the cold. Sadly. Depressingly. Next up is Guardian Spirit. When this effect is placed on a player, do not try to go in for the kill. Killing a player with this effect on them will bring them back up to 40% health. If you can, hold off and keep next to them. Otherwise, be prepared to take somebody from 40% back down to 0% again. Next up we have Pain Suppression. This is for Discipline Priest only. And due to the big damage reduction on a player, try changing it to a different target if you can. At least until the effect wears off. Or run and kite whilst holding your combo points until Pain Suppression runs out. After Pain Suppression runs out, feel free to put in a kidney and then start bursting. Next up is the Dispersion. This is for Shadow only. In a 1v1 situation, Shadow Priests will often use Dispersion once you start bursting. So allow for a few seconds in between Vendetta and hold on to Exsanguinate for a little longer in order to determine what they will do. If they don't disperse, try and burst them down. If they do disperse, either get a re-stealth or follow them closely, keeping all your dots up on them and holding onto all your combo points. Once they come out, throw down your combo points and pop an Ixang. Next up is our rivals. So we have Riposte, and this will parry all melee abilities as well as give back some damage for every parry. So you will more than likely not be able to kite. And this is due to the Outlaw Rogue having a bit more mobility than you. So you're going to have to trade his Riposte for your evasion. A little tip is try to get behind the enemy, as Riposte doesn't work from behind. So if you can get behind the Outlaw Rogue, you should be able to get a couple of extra combo points for at least once Riposte is finished. Next up we've got Evasion. You'll come across this if you're versing a rival Assassination or Subtlety Rogue. Once again, if Evasion has been popped, there's not much you can do but trade for trade in order to keep the pressure up and keep them from getting a re-stealth. So the same will apply from Riposte. Next up we've got Cloak of Shadows. This spell will remove all of your poisons, so bear in mind if you've got any agonizing, deadly, wound or crippling poisons, they will fall off. Bleeds will still go through however, so ensure you keep them bleeding. And if they're trying to run, make sure to use poison knife to hit them from afar. As a note, I will not be going over feint due to the fact that it's a spammable defensive, and there's not much you can do about versing a rogue that's spamming feint for the reduced damage reduction. Next up we've got Astral Shift. Astral Shift is for every shaman, which means it's a class-wide spell that reduces all damage that they take. If you see this, try not to burst until after. Normally shamans will use this at around 3/4 to a half health if they're being bursted down. If that's the case, you've already bursted more than likely, as Assassination Rogues burst at the start. So just keep the pressure up and keep kicking any heals that are cast and interrupting anything that they do to help keep the pressure on. Next up we've got the Spirit Link Totem. This is for the Resto Shaman only, and this will be used when a Resto Shaman is around 1 or more people, as it splits health evenly between their allies. If you can, try to keep them away from other team members. If they reach them and get the totem down, your burst will be for naught, and you'll have to start all over again. Next up we've got the Ancestral Protection Totem. This is the totem that is talented, and it's not often taken, and so this one here is a lot harder to point out. But essentially, when keeping on a Shaman Healer, just watch for any totems that they put down. If it's an Ancestral Protection Totem, it lasts for 30 seconds. So either kill it, or be prepared to kill the healer or his ally twice, as it can resurrect an ally. Next up is the Counter-Strike Totem. This one here most of you guys should know. It's an honor talent for Shaman, and it's for every single spec. It's a dangerous totem. If you do not see it fast enough, or if you ignore its presence, it will show you what it can do. Kill it immediately on sight. Or don't burst into the Shaman unless you want to die, or kill your mate. Next up we have Unending Resolve. This is for all specs within the class. Unending is a big 3-minute cooldown that allows the caster free cast and reduce damage towards them. The caster cannot be interrupted during this time unless stunned. Try not to burst into this cooldown. If you have already put everything in and you've got no choice, make sure to stun or kick when he's not using Unending Resolve, the Drain Life spell. All other spells can be cloaked, but do not allow the Warlock to heal up. That is the big thing. Next up we have Dark Pact. This, once again, is a talent which every spec can choose, and is normally the go-to and recommended talent for them. Dark Pact is a flat shield that absorbs a massive amount of damage. If you can avoid putting your damage into it, then hold off. If it's too late, then obviously you're going to have to burst through it and hope for the best if everything's already up on him. Stop the Warlock from healing at all costs. Only cloak if you're in trouble. Next up we have Essence Drain. This one here is an honor talent. Essence Drain has a stacking effect that will make you deal far less damage. Stacks up to 5 times and makes you deal 10% reduced damage for every single tick of Drain Life. So always stop Drain Life at all costs, and do not burst if he's got stacks of Essence Drain on you. Wait for it to fall off if you can. Last but not least we have Warriors Die by the Sword. If you're a PvPer, you've already seen this on before. This makes the warrior parry all melee attacks, and most will use this immediately after being stunned when up against an Assassination Rogue. So burst before they come out of stun, or vanish and come back in after their CDs are on cooldown for easy kill, so long as they've used the spell. So in summary here, essentially use all your cooldowns correctly, and don't make a mistake. Using one cooldown at the wrong time means death for Assassination. Figure out when someone will most likely use their defensives and react accordingly. And most of all, try to stay calm and collected. This will mean you are less likely to make mistakes. Okay, so next up is talents. And I think before we get into talents, what I'll do is I'll go through my general rotation. And then from there we'll look at the recount as well, so you can see what sort of damage is coming out on top. And so up here I've got my, or you can even see over here as well, I've got my deadly, I've got my crippling. So I'll get my deadly and my crippling and just double check that it's up. I've got Whispers and Insanity up, so I'll get rid of that at the moment. Everything else, I got my Survivor's Bag. That doesn't increase damage at all. And so I'll come through my general rotation, and I'll pretend that this is the Spellcaster. So for my Spellcaster, I would want to come up, and I would want to have him sept. And then, as I've sept him, I would open up with a Garrote straight away. And then after my Garrote, I'd go in for 1 Mutilate, because the Garrote would have kept in silence for a little bit, and then just as the silence is about to wear off, then I pop my Cheap Shot, and I'm able to use my Cheap Shot after Garrote due to the talent Subterfuge, and it allows me to keep using abilities while even after being out of stealth for 3 seconds. So after using my Garrett, then into mute, then cheap shot, then I want to use one hemo, and then pop my rupture. If I've already got 6 combo points, then I'll use a rupture straight away. Otherwise, if I've got 5 points, then I'll use one hemo and then get a really good 6-point rupture on the target. And then I'll use my macro, which is a Vendetta, King's Blade, Mark for Death, and then after that I'll pop my kidney shot. And my kidney shot, because I'm talented for the internal bleeding, I'll deal a little bit of extra bleed damage, which is also increased in damage due to hemorrhage that will be on the target at that time. And then I'll exsanguinate everything, and all of the bleeds will speed up. By that time, my Garrett will be about to fall off due to exsanguinate speeding it up. So I'll need to reapply exsanguinate, and then I'll need to keep running in and making sure that I refresh everything, and then get a really good envenom on the target. Here we go with the spellcaster general rotation. Five-point. Then my rupture is about to fall off, so I put my rupture back up. My hemorrhage is about to fall off, so I put my hemorrhage back up. Then I put another 2 mutilates in. Then I put another big envenom up. Garrett. I keep up with the damage. And then that's generally the rotation. Then, put in like another stun, and yeah, you should be able to kill by then. So that's the general rotation to be able to kill a healer, normally. That's the rotation that I use. It makes full use of the Garrett. It allows for combo points to stack up before putting in a cheap shot. And then, so long as they don't trinket the cheap shot, you should be able to get off a nice rupture as well as a nice hemo. If they do trinket the cheap shot, then it's a little bit different, because it depends on what they do from there. If they trinket and run, it's a matter of using sprint to chase them. If they trinket and blink, it's a matter of using shadow step to chase them. And if they trinket and CC you, it's a matter of trinketing as fast as you can to keep the pressure up. Already, due to my artifact traits, my cooldowns are back up again. So now what I'll go through is the general melee rotation, which is not much different at all. Essentially, you want to keep them set once again, so you can have them in one place, and the crippling poison will keep them slowed enough. And so the very first ability I want to use is one mutilate first, and the reason being is because you can use cheap shot straight after, and you don't need to open with a Garrett to silence them, because they are melee and they often don't have anything that you need to silence them with straight away. The only melee I could maybe see using Garrett on first would be paladins maybe, or maybe druids and monks, and that's only if they're using heals, and you can see that they're off healing, so you might want to open them with a Garrett first. Otherwise, general rotation for other such classes that can't off heal, you'd want to open up with a mutilate after sapping them if you can, and then cheap shot them straight away, then throw your Garrett on to bleed them, and then if you've got 5 points, put a hemo on first and then rupture. But if you've got 6 points, put a rupture on first and then hemo them after. If you've got a 6-point rupture straight away, count yourself lucky, because that means you've got extra energy coming in faster. You can then put on a hemo, and then when you put in your Mark for Death Vendetta macro, you've got 6 points to play with rather than 5 points to play with, which means you'll get a 6-point kidney shot rather than a 5-point kidney shot. That also means that you'll be able to burst for a little bit longer without them coming out of stun. So here I'll go, invis, and so for example, you'd sap them down here, just one sap, keep them there unless they're in combat. Then you want to open with a mutilate first, and then a cheap shot, and then a Garrett. See, I've only got 5 points right now, so I want to go hemo, and then I'll put in a rupture, and then I'll put in my big combo, and then I'll put down my cheap shot, open again. My Garrett's about to fall off soon, so I'll put on my Garrett, and then I'll put in a big hemo, a big envenom, put down a hemorrhage. I'll get ready for my rupture to come back up again. And then you should be able to burst. This should be just enough burst to be able to take them out. And if not, already straight away, I've got my kidney shot straight away that I can use it again. I have my evasion I've got, which can evade all melee attacks from the front. I have my Cloak of Shadows if I'm versing a paladin to get rid of his to stop his Fist of Justice from hitting me, or to stop any of his holy attacks from hitting me, or perhaps I'm attacking a healer and I can cloak to preempt the fear or the stun or just a CC in general to be able to keep up the pressure. Now actions on if who you're versing trinket straight away and they're melee. The very first thing that I do if I'm still halfway through my rotation is I throw my evasion up immediately so that I can keep the pressure on so that they can't do anything. Evasion means that I'll block everything from the front, and it can also block things like Fist of Fury stun and other stuns as well, like spinning crane kick, etc. So if you were to come across a monk and perhaps like you opened on him with a mute and then with a cheap shot and he's stunned, I'll pop evasion straight away, put on my rupture if it's 6 points, my Garrote, my hemo, and then I'd put up my big macro, put him into a kidney. He wouldn't be able to trinket out of this. I'll put down all of my burst, and then once this was happening, then I'd make sure to keep everything up and run through. And if he did end up popping Karma, I could just vanish. Vanish will last for 3 seconds before I come out, and then I can cloak, and that means that the damage will still stay for a little bit less. And then after that, then I'll come out of invis. But it's a good way of getting rid of a lot of damage from you if they try to touch of Kami. One of the classes I found is personally the most hardest at the moment to verse 1v1 is the Ret Paladin, and that's due to the fact that they have 3 shields now. They've got the Shield of Vengeance, which is an absorb shield that will deal damage once you blow through it. So you kind of don't want to blow through it, but then you're going to miss out on a lot of pressure and you won't be able to keep any pressure up. So personally what I've found is I'll put heaps of damage up on the Paladin, and if he does use Shield of Vengeance, I'll normally hold off on my burst and then I'll try and run from him. And by running I mean like I'll throw poison knives at him just to keep him crippled, and I'll keep running. And often they'll use their big slow movement, which will slow me for like 8 seconds. And you just gotta tank it. You can't vanish yet. It's not worth it. And it's so hard not to just want to use your vanish to get away. And so he will chase you as well. He'll use his horse, he'll use his charger, and he'll chase you, and he'll slow you. And at that point, you really have to use your evasion, and you just gotta keep facing him, and just keep him at a distance, at least until the shield is down, or at least until it expires. It's even better if it expires, because that means you can just carry on. But if it comes down, try to make sure that you're not within the AoE vicinity, because you will take quite a lot of damage. I think it's something like 3 to 500,000 damage that you can end up taking, so it's really, really big, especially for such a squishy little rogue. Sometimes as well when dueling a paladin, they can actually end up using Shield of Vengeance twice within one duel, because the battle might be able to go on for that long. If that's the case, he should be at low health by now, and if he's using Shield of Vengeance, and you do end up blowing through that as well, he will end up using Holy Wrath at the same time, and that will be at least 1 million plus damage in one big go, and it will kill you. So do make sure that if you are going to blow through that at the very end, just to quickly get that kill, or to try and get that kill, make sure that you pop Cloak of Shadows during that time, just before it's about to blow off, because it will hurt so much. Thanks for watching the general rotation, and I hope that it did help if you have been watching up to this point so far. And if you've been wondering if you're still wondering why I've chosen these talents, I'm just about to go into them now. And so I hope you'll be able to either learn something from it or understand the reasons as to why I've chosen these specific talents. Okay, so here we are with the recount open now. And as we can see here, the rupture dot is at the very top with a count of 84. So this is the overall damage. I just want to have a look at I just want the overall damage to come up. I don't want
I don't really care about the current fights or anything, because the DPS would have gone down after just like running around and just talking. So the overall damage itself, you can see here that Rupture is at the top, and it's not at the top by a little bit, it's at the top by a lot. You can see that it's taken up nearly a good third of the graph. Yeah, well there we go, a third of the graph. Also here we've got Garrow as well, so that's another bleed. And then further down, you'll see that there's Hemorrhage. So Hemorrhage doesn't do that much, but it's not necessarily the damage that itself does. It's not necessarily the damage that the Hemorrhage does, it's the damage that it allows the other two bleeds to do. So my 6-point Hemorrhages were hitting for an average of 76,000 per tick, and they could crit for a maximum of 264,000. This isn't on players, the damage is reduced in PvP, but you can kind of see, I think, from a PvP perspective, I think the Ruptures were hitting for approximately 100,000 at most when I was versing players, so it's not really big, but when you exsanguinate and you increase the haste of all the bleeds, that's when you can really see the big damage come out. And it stacks, you know, like all of these little bits of damage stacks up really quite fast, you know, just like an Affliction Lock or whatnot. So, and then at the same time you've got the Garrow as well, which is not too much damage, you can't really see that much, an average of 28 with a crit of 70,000, a max of 131,000. You wouldn't see that much up against a player, but as you can see, Rupture and Garrow still going to be at the top when you're versing a player. And so these are the reasons as to why, when I'm going through my talents, you'll see why I've done this. My Envenoms, they're hitting really hard. As a side note, I can't wait until I get more honor talents, because I really want to try out this System Shock. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing, and I can't wait. The grind is real. After Envenom, it's the auto attacks that ends up coming through, and that's before the mutilates, and that's mainly just due to the fact that mutilate costs quite a bit, and so you don't be using mutilate too much unless you've got a reserve. It's kind of like a filler, kind of. When it crits, it's amazing because it can give you up to 4 combo points as well, you've got to remember. So it can be really good, but it's also very energy intensive, and for us rogues it's very hard. For us Assassination Rogues, it's very hard to keep up our energy, so you want to really make sure to use mutilate only in the best of times when you've got heaps of energy to pull and you don't need to renew any of your dots. Alright, so I've made a guide online as well, as you guys can see. So I've got this Wellhead guide, so that's what I'm pulling this from, because I thought I'd make a video out of it as well. It'd be a lot easier, and it just means I can talk about it on video as well, a lot easier if I've got my own guide. So we've got Hemorrhage. It gives a massive bonus of 25% extra damage to all of your bleeds, so that includes the internal bleeding, the Rupture, the Hemorrhage itself, as well as the Garrote. You've got Subterfuge. It's a necessity for Assassination Rogue. It has 100% extra Garrote bleed damage, which is here, 100%. And it also gets increased by Hemorrhage as well, so that 125% of extra bleed damage, essentially. Also, the being able to cheap shot after using Garrote is a necessity, because if you don't have Subterfuge and you Garrote, then you can no longer cheap shot after Garrote. So you can't have anything else as Assassination. You really need it. There's no arguing. Deeper Stratagem is next. Great for getting the massive 6-point combo Rupture points. So I did a little bit of math, and it equates to 20% more damage on everything, essentially. It lasts for 4 seconds longer, and it deals 20% more damage per tick as well. And also, who doesn't want a 7-second kidney? So if you have 5 points for a kidney shot, normally it's a 6-second stun, but if you have 6 points, it's a 7-second kidney shot stun, which is just a really big CC. It's really long, and one thing that us Assassination Rogues are missing is a lot of CC. So at least having to have a really nice long stun CC, that's good. I like that. Envenom, the big finishing move that we end up doing eventually, after throwing down all the rest of our burst. This will end up hitting really hard once you get the right honor talents as well. But yeah, so we have an extra 20% extra damage once again, and so with a 6-point Envenom we have an extra 20% damage, and it will make the poison application last for 7 seconds rather than 6 seconds. which also means more instant nature damage if your deadly poison keeps proccing, or if you're using the agonizing poison for 3s, then it will also successfully apply to the enemy a lot more often. Elusiveness, this here is for all the high rated rogues. You could, I argue, you could use cheat death, if you don't want to fork out all the energy, but in my opinion, having 30% damage reduction is that spammable is just really good. Really good. Don't hesitate to take the time to learn how to use this as much as you can, like just because there's an effective way to use it and there's an ineffective or ineffective way to use this. So yeah, learn how to use feint correctly and you'll be away laughing. For the 75 talents, we've got internal bleeding or Prey in the Weak. Prey in the Weak is for 3s, internal bleeding is for 1v1s or for maybe 2v2s, just for getting out your own extra bleeding. 12 seconds worth of extra bleeding, increase through hemorrhage and also vendetta, so the damage will stack additively, not multiplicatively. It also works with exsanguinate, which means that the bleed will get sped up, so it'll go down to 6 seconds worth of bleeding really fast, which adds for extra burst. Also, and so here we have a good row of talents where all are fairly viable for 3s, but only one is really viable for 1v1 or 2s. This one here can be taken off and it's too hard to put on, such a low application chance, as well as just it can easily be taken off straight away. And this one here is too much of a ramp up time, takes far too long obviously, so this one here is the only viable choice for 1v1 and 2v2s really. It says the tooltip, it says 400% faster, but it's been changed and the tooltip just hasn't been changed here on Wowhead. But yeah, it's 100% faster bleeds. Really great for once you've like completed your full rotation, and then you can just pop exsanguinate and watch all your bleeds speed up and their health just drop really fast. So they deal the same amount of damage, it just speeds up the damage that they were ticking, just so within half the time rather than the full time. So yeah, great for the burst. The mark for death here, very essential for us rogues. You could maybe, I don't even want to go there. Just no, and no. No, don't even stop looking at this. Turn away. Look away, this is dirty. Don't. Mark for death. Essential for rogues, especially assassination. We require energy. Having 5 free combo points every 1 minute and or after every death that had a mark for death on him. So good. It's so good. That's at least 2 attacks, so 110 energy for the 55 mutilates, for the 55 energy mutilates, or even more energy with all the hemorrhage and garrote. Mark for death is just too good to give up. It gives you 5, even if you're talented for 6, it gives you 5 combo points, and it ensures you can keep up the pressure every single minute. It allows for having 5 free combo points, meaning you don't have to spend the energy to get that free combo points. It means more burst as well, and it comes up every 1 minute or whenever you manage to kill someone with it on, or whenever you manage to kill someone with the mark for death debuff on them. So it's great for having a break from using energy using abilities. Now that we've gone over our dual spec style talents, we want to go down to our PvP here. This is what I believe is going to be the best dual spec talents at the moment. At the moment, I think I'm sitting at around about level 13, so I can't wait till I can get a little bit further so I can get the rest of these. But yeah, essentially you want to get the gladiators and medallion. Unless you're an orc, then go for relentless. If you want to go, if you're an orc, because it can stack with the orc racial. Otherwise, yeah, use the gladiators medallion on everything else. Don't ever use adaptation, because if you've got adaptation and you're up against a rogue and they use sap, you will insta trinket their sap no matter what, because this is a passive honor talent. You can't stop that from happening, so it's quite bad. Also, we want to have reinforced armor. It will stack quite nicely with our healing vial, because it heals off percentage of health rather than X amount of health, and it's also 10% extra health, which is really good. You could also go for sparring perhaps as well if you wanted to. I wouldn't see any reason why you wouldn't if you wanted to go, if you're up against double melee. I think that's completely viable as well. For our movement talent tree, or for our movement on a talent tree, maneuverability is going to be the biggest one for us. Cut to the chase, not really. This is a passive, but I can't see it working all the time really well, because not everyone's going to be using sprint or movement effects to get away from you all the time, and so this here does have its downfalls, whereas here you've got 4 seconds that you can suppress movement speed to catch up to whoever you need to, which is really big, especially seeing as us as assassination rogues, we can be kited really easy, and it's really sad. This essentially makes up for our burst of speed in a very small sense. So you could opt out for cut to the chase, but just use at your own risk. Here we have a couple of viable spells here. You've got, after coming out of a stun, damage increased by 15%. So this would be good if you're up against other rogues, because you might get caught up first, or even ferals, you could get caught up first, so you could possibly use this. I would see no problem with that. This here will be if you're with allies, so it would be probably better in 2s or 3s. But this one here is the one that I want. I want extra burst as fast as I can, and I'm relying on the fact that I'm going to be able to get the opener first. And so immediately they're going to be lower health than me, meaning I can have critical strike damage increase at all times when versing them, essentially. Next up we have the Poisons talent row. Here we have a couple, so maybe Mind Numbing or with Deadly Brew. I'm going to be going with Deadly Brew for probably the whole time. Increases, it causes the Wound Poisons effect, so I don't need to have Wound Poison on instead of Deadly Poison, so it's nice. It means I can keep my Deadly Poison damage, which isn't really much, but it's alright. Still better than nothing. There's also Mind Numbing, which could be good up against DPS spellcasters, but I couldn't see this working very well up against healers, because I doubt it would deal enough damage to make up for the Wound Poisons effect. So I probably wouldn't take Mind Numbing unless I'm up against a spellcaster DPS. And now for our last talent row, we've got either Creeping Venom or System Shock. Flying Daggers for 1v1 obviously, or even 2v2 is just not even a thing. In fact, I don't even know why this is an honor talent. Venom Knives is completely useless for a rogue. So we have either Creeping Venom, which you could use in conjunction with a lot of your dot damage, or you can have instant burst damage. So casting in Venom with at least 5 combo points will, so long as it has Garrot and Rupture, which is normally what you have to keep up anyway, so it's not too hard, to be honest. Like, you should be able to do that already. You'll be able to deal a whole lot of extra damage and reduce their movement speed by 90% for 4 seconds, so that's an even better Chains of Ice. It's a DK's Chains of Ice. Every time you can get a 5-second combo point Rupture, combo point Inventor on them, which is fucking amazing. This would be also, I think, really great for peeling your healers as well in 2s and 3s. So I will be using this in 2s and 3s more than likely as well, as soon as I can. I don't believe using Creeping Venom against hybrids or classes that could survive as well, because they could end up blocking or karmaing you, and so that could be quite dangerous. Just bear in mind if you want to go using Creeping Venom. Obviously, if you're like me, you have to, because I'm only level 13, but I'll get there eventually. And then last but not least, we've got your artifact weapon in general. So I'm moving around the top of the daggers first. So I want to get to the Urge to Kill. I believe that it is a gold trait. It's far better than the Bag of Tricks, and in my opinion it can even be better than the Rupture, because it increases it refills your energy straight away, and energy is so important for rogues, so this is just absolutely amazing. This allows for faster burst rotation, and it's a must for, I think, for us. So I moved from here, I moved all the way across. I wanted more speed, so I could like move around a lot faster, and then I picked this up even though it's not really that great. Then I moved back through here, and I picked up this, the Master Assassin, cooldown Vendetta, reduced cooldown of Vendetta. Then I moved along to the bleeds. I got the bleeds. This has been absolutely great so far. I've been really enjoying using this. Then I'm going to move up here once I get enough artifact power, because I want to have reduced Cloak of Shadows as well. And I might end up using Shadow Step Evasion, but I don't see how viable it's going to be, because within 2 seconds they may not have even turned around to attack you yet. Maybe 1 second you might get something, but I can't see you blocking very many attacks for 2 seconds. If it was 3 seconds, yeah, it'd be very, very good, but 2 seconds, they might not even turn around yet. So yeah, I'm probably not going to go for this one yet. This I definitely ignored. This is going to be the very last thing I use. This is going to be the very last thing I upgrade. I completely ignored these at the start because I don't like the idea of using Phantom Knives in PvP. It doesn't deal enough damage in my opinion. And then Surge of Toxins is really, really good. I like this. This is going to be great for it's going to be even better for burst, because you'll have 5 seconds of extra damage when you do the rupture. You'll have 5 seconds of extra damage when you do a kidney, and then by the time that kidney's finished, you should have had enough time to use an envenom, which would be 5 seconds of extra damage again, and that envenom would have already been increased by 10% using that Surge of Toxins passive. Onwards we go for the Serrated Edge, so that's just casual stuff, and then we finally get our finisher, our big burst. This will pretty much complete us as Assassination Rogues. Once we've got this, we will be about as strong as we can possibly get in terms of all of the big viable bursts that we can get, and then after that it's just filling in the rest of the gaps, so grabbing the Balance Blades, grabbing the Shadow Swiftness, and grabbing Master Alchemist. And that's from worst to best, so you want to grab this first, then that. So Master Alchemist, then the Shadow Swiftness, and then the Balance Blades. So these are the ones you go for last. You don't have to go this way, the way that I've told you. The only reason I've gone this way is because I like my survivability, so I like being able to sprint away more often to either close gaps or boost away. I like Cloak of Shadows because I like to be able to get rid of all that spell damage so I can get a restealth. And I like being able to have more energy so I can either use Feint more often, get my Crimson Vial while I'm bursting if somebody else is hurting me, or if I can, or just to carry on doing some extra mutilates. It's great. And if you're still watching, thanks for watching so far. I know it's a pretty massive guide, and I hope you're taking away a lot from this. Onwards. So we've got some important items here. Goblin Glider. This is really, really big. If you don't have some, go and either buy some or make some. They're a Draenor item for engineering. Fairly simple to make, it's just they're quite expensive at the moment due to the auction house exploding and so many new characters being made, which means that lots of people are wanting to buy Goblin Gliders to boost around. It's really amazing for PvE, like running around and jumping off mountains and gliding to other different places to get to quests faster. It's also good for if you've been knocked back off BGs, and instead of falling to your death you can Goblin Glide away, because they can be used in BGs. Arenas, however, no you can't. Skirmishes, no. 1v1 duels, yes you could if you were in a place where you could jump off and glide, and probably end up forfeiting because you go out of range. Survivor's Bag of Coins, this is great for outside of Legion area. I don't know if you can use it in Draenor, but within Legion and Outlands, so if you're doing some old school stuff and maybe you got ganked or something like that, or just even running around like normal, if you pickpocket people with the Survivor's Bag, you get coins that you can explode on the ground, and they will shoot you away from the direction that you've shot the coins. So you can cover large distances to either get away or close in gaps as well. So it can also be used in a PvP perspective. And so I've put some potions here. The potions are normally further down, but they weren't coming up on the potions. So we got Potion of Deadly Grace. So it grants you attached to unleash a bolt of energy at your target. So it will shoot like just a big bolt at people. And so this will just be like a little bit of extra damage. And for world PvP and perhaps BGs, this would be quite good for just like that little bit of extra burst damage. You've also got potions that you're going to be needing as a rogue because we don't heal that well. Hellstones are also great, obviously. Having mage food, also great. And there's a new Mecha Blast rocket for Legion. I can't quite remember what it's called. I've actually just finished making a whole lot. I think it's called like Gunpowder Charge. And it deals something like 480,000 damage. It might even be just 380,000, but it's around about there, and so that's also great for burst as well. It acts just like a Mecha Blast rocket, so it's instant and it can shoot up to, I think 40 yards away, so it's really, really good. Down here on theory crafting, that this is going to be the stat priorities. Mastery at the moment for us is poisons, and poisons don't deal enough damage, so that's why I put mastery at the very bottom. The haste rating increases energy regen, so up here where haste increases attack and spell casting speed. So my attack speed will be a lot faster, just my normal melee. It also adds additional damage and healing to dots and hots, so the additional damage to my dots because they're ticking a lot faster. So haste is going to be really, really great for all the bleeds, as well as for exsanguinate bleeds. Reduces the global cooldown of all of my spells, of all of my spells and bleeds, which means I can pop my bleeds and spells out faster. Also, haste increases your energy regen. So energy regen's a really big thing for Assassination Rogues, and so I believe haste is going to be absolutely amazing for us. Next up is the versatility. And so this decreases the damage received. As you can see here, it increases damage and healing. So it means our vials will heal us a little bit more. Our damage output will be more. Crit will be next up before mastery, only because you get extra combat points with mutilate, and having extra crits with all those dots while they're absolutely wrecking someone is going to be amazing, and it will help you kill people a lot faster. And mastery last, as poisons don't deal anywhere near as much damage as the bleeds do, as seen by that little snippet that I showed you before of the rupture and the Garrote being up at the very, very top. And then we've got gems as well, gems and back enchants and whatnot, but stats aren't really as important anymore as they used to be, so I'd take a lot of the stuff with a grain of salt anyway. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes with more playthrough in Legion, and hopefully we'll be able to see how well the stats really do take to rogues and what the specific stats are going to be for us. Anyway, that's my full download for the Rogue Duel Spec. It's a super, super long in-depth guide, and I hope you took something out of it. In the next lot of videos you'll see will probably just be me and having some battleground videos or some skirmish videos, getting ready for the PvP season up ahead. Anyway guys, I'm Gaviscon, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.